when should you go about getting your set aside? So I'm talking woman-owned small business, economically disadvantaged, woman-owned small business, HUBZone, service-disabled, veteran-owned small business, or just VOSB, and also the SBA 8A certification program. These are all federal set-asides, and this question is maybe one where there's an obvious answer. And the reason I wanted to have a short conversation with you is that I don't always agree with that obvious answer. And so, the picture that's painted to get you to this point, and you'll probably be able to relate to this, is it's like, hey, if you have an established business, you move on to registering in sam.gov. Sam.gov, you're going to go ahead and get your CAGE, your DUNS number. You're going to select NAICS codes. Maybe you'll even play around with, CAPE statements at this time and at this stage of the game. Maybe even make some changes to your company's website if you want to be an A+ student. But then after that, this is kind of when industry, meaning the SBA, the PTAX, and just kind of the dogma that is almost pervading the industry is that you want to have all your ducks in the row first. And, going through sam.gov and getting that process set up, your registration, it takes a little bit of work. So it's kind of very natural to be like, okay, I'm feeling satisfied. I kind of got this and I got this. Now it's time for set-asides, and I want to kind of keep that mental high going on, and I want to go out and get my woman-owned small business, or I want to go get into the 8A program. And that is not always the case for these set-asides, and that's kind of what I'm going to talk to you about today. And really quickly, before we dive into that, hopefully you've heard about the First Fed Bid Incubator Program. We're literally 2 weeks away from wrapping up enrollment. We do have a really great turnout so far. We're exactly on track for where I want to be, which means the slots are getting extremely limited. So if you are looking for proposal bidding support in the federal space, sam.gov, confidently responding to your first federal solicitations, RFPs, RFQs. You want kind of coaching one-on-one with me in the group setting that we're going to be offering, and you want to jump in at the lowest price point First Fed Bid is ever going to be at during the beta round. Make sure you check out the link in the description of this video to schedule some time on my calendar where we can talk about it. So now with the set-asides, I'm going to pull them down one by one and spend a minute or so on each. So starting off with woman-owned small business / economically disadvantaged woman-owned small business, when should you get this? Okay, I do recommend for this one that you can get it sooner than later. I do recommend that once you're finished your SAM registration, you can keep moving on and carrying on to get this at this point in time. My reasoning for this is that it does not take a lot of time investment. It's not a lot of paperwork gathering compared to the other set-asides, and I don't see it being a big distraction to business owners who go about through this process trying to secure their WOSB or their EDWOSB. So for that reason, this particular set-aside, I do recommend if you're wanting to go about getting that right away once you're registered in SAM first. If you do want to delay, that's totally fine. I tell everybody, you don't have to belong to a set-aside group to be successful, especially on sam.gov. In the federal space, there's total small business set-aside for a reason, and we all automatically get that without having to do anything special once we're registered in sam.gov. As long as you're small business, you automatically qualify for the total small business set aside. Now, I will let you know that recently the SBA did revamp the WOSB certification. Previously, it used to be a very easy self-certification that you could kind of just go through and do online. If you go to certify.sba.gov, I believe it's even in its beta version itself, beta.certify.sba.gov. Now they have an updated kind of green button, apply for your WOSB certification. Now it's no longer self-certification. You can begin the process there. I have not gone through that process with any clients as of yet. It's pretty new. So I don't think that it takes that much longer. I just know that there's more of a third-party intermediary involved. There's a little bit more scrutiny because this was in response to actually people taking advantage of the program. So that does not affect the decision on my answer either, and that's why I'm bringing more context around that. I think it would still be just fine to go about getting this essentially whenever you want, whether you get it right now once you're registered or you get it later. Go ahead, you have my stamp of approval on that. Okay, so now we're going to contrast this, another SBA program, the 8A program. A lot of small business owners hear about how great the 8A program is. It is a 9-year incubator program, so it is finite. It does have an end date once you're actually apply and processed and accepted and enrolled to the program. There is an end date. So that's one of the things that are going to factor into my response to this, and as well as just the application process itself. Unless you're going to try to shorten the application requirement, which some can do. Typically, you have to be in business and established for 2 years. You have to show tax returns for that. Again, sometimes people put in requests to expedite that and shorten that process to a year or less. Sometimes it works out in their case. Other times it does not. Basically showing, proof that they are established and that they can benefit and be successful in the SBA 8A program. That's primarily what the application is focused on, and those details that they go about capturing for your business, that's what they're trying to support. So I hear from so many of you, hey Derek, I'm just registered in sam.gov, now I want to go get my 8A. Buzzer, wrong answer, okay? You don't want to do that. Even if you do have the 2 years in the commercial space, it's not what I would recommend. And that is because for the most of you, all of you pretty much that I'm talking to, you have not mastered the proposal and the bidding process, what we're teaching in First Fed Bid starting next month. Okay, you have not mastered that process. Okay, do you know how to read through the solicitations, RFPs, RFQs? Do you know how to proposal write to them, do a compliant response? Do you know how to go even past that point and effectively market and build relationships so that your 8A actually is a tool that's working for you instead of a clock that's just counting down, freaking you out as each year goes by? You don't want to do that. You want to make sure you have the fundamentals mastered first before you take on this supplemental set aside. In addition, you do have that clock that starts ticking. So many people get in the program, they waste the whole first half of it because they didn't even know what they were doing. And that's even if they're still around for 3, 4, 5 years into the program and they're still being very active, because a lot don't even make it and they drop out. So if you're pursuing the 8A application, my recommendation is to wait until you get 1 or 2 prime federal contracts to your business and you're either performing on them or you finish them. And while you're in process with that and you're kind of getting a bit more established in the federal space, that is the time to pursue the 8A application process, because you will be able to leverage it a heck of a lot better once they say, okay, you're on your own, go run free for the next 9 years. It's really going to be on you. The SBA is not going to be bringing you contracts. Contracts are not going to walk themselves into the door just because you're 8A. And contracting officers are not just going to be calling you because they found you in some database somewhere saying, hey, we're looking for an 8A, can you do this? That is just not reality. Industry sometimes will make you think that, but what is it that they have to gain by saying that? What is it that they're trying to sell you? The honest truth is that you have to work it. If you don't, your 8A certification is going to collect dust. You're going to waste time. And if you're going to get serious at a certain point in time, you're going to start to make things happen. And then you're going to look back and say, man, I could have gotten so many more contracts, so many more sole sources, or just 8A competitive contracts with our company. So this is not a set aside that you want to rush into. Once you register in sam.gov, I recommend instead you get to work learning how to bid, proposal write, respond to opportunities, and get a few under your belt before you go about trying to pursue the 8A application. Okay, the next one we're going to tackle is veterans. So veteran-owned small business, service-disabled veteran-owned small business. I'm a bit 50-50 on this one, okay? I'm not leaning as hard as I was against the 8A application at the early stage. It's really 50-50. And the reason for this is I know there's so many veterans. I talk to so many of you. Derek, okay, I'm out of the service. I want to start my own business. Or, hey, I already have a business. Or I want to utilize my military experience and build a business. And, I kind of see the service disabled or just the WOSB set aside being something that's going to help me grow that much faster, okay? I tend to agree with you to a certain extent. One of the things that I like about doing this early on is, the VA. So, you're going to go through the CVE certification process. If you're not getting CVE certified, it's really not going to hold water. There are other certifications out there that relate to veterans. You want to make sure you're doing it through the VA website. So if you go to VA, Small Business, OSDBU, you're going to see small business liaisons. And there is also a section for the Vets First Veteran-Owned Small Business Certification process through the VA. Okay, so they have really, really good, very educated, in my experience and what I've heard, people that can help you with this process. It is a lot of paperwork. There are people out there that will charge you between $2 to $3K to do this for you. Really, at the end of the day, with anything like that, even with the 8A application too, it's still on you to come up with the paperwork, because obviously these hired guns, they don't have your paperwork, they don't have your information. So you're still going to have to gather all this stuff and then give it to them, and then you're basically paying them 2 to 3K or more than that in some cases, to basically upload and be a POC and maybe send an email or two, and that's about it. So I don't really see the value add, and I do see a lot of my clients that have told me in the past that it just really wasn't worth it. At the time, I was new, I didn't have the confidence, so I just went with it. But now I'm like, man, I really could have did that on my own. So don't let money, being able to make this financial investment or not, to have somebody do it for you, affect when you decide that this is something that's a fit for your business. If it is, I think you can kind of have the discipline to get it done yourself with the paperwork. For both programs, the 8A, I'm tying it in, and this Veteran-Owned Small Business Cert, you're looking at a 3 to 6 month timeline. In some cases, it's longer. I have seen it done a bit shorter as well. And the other thing I like is that the VA, so the Veteran Affairs, look up the Kingdomware court case where, I believe it was 3 or 4, maybe 5 years back now. Vets First was the ruling. So there was a court case that kind of challenged that a contract was going to a non-veteran owned company because veterans could have done it. So it was challenged, and it was found that the contracts have to be shown to go to vets first. And if the paper trail, the market research, source of SOT stage and all that stuff shows that veteran-owned small businesses cannot do the contracts, then the VA will open it up to, woman-owned small business, or say just total small business set aside. So for now, everything is going to vets, okay? And that's through the Department of Veteran Affairs, the VA as a federal agency. So this is a great opportunity for the VA to help vets, right? And I'm very much in favor of the program, and I'm glad that the ruling went this way. It kind of pissed off especially a lot of woman-owned small businesses, because the VA was doing a lot of business with WOSBs at the time, and some contracts that were even kind of like in process up to a certain stage, those were actually taken back. So it was pretty ground shaking at the time. I remember it pretty clearly. So for you, if you should pursue this right when you get sam.gov or later on, it's kind of up to you. I kind of support either. Like I said, I am 50-50. I want you to do what's best for you. If you think you just want to focus and just jump in to start bidding, learning the proposal writing process, I support that, and I commend you for that. And then grow into your VOSB set aside, totally fine with that. If you're like, Derek, you know what? I think I want to get this sooner than later, just kind of get it out of the way, mentally check that box, then okay, make sure you go to the VA website, make sure you connect with a VA person, a counselor who can kind of tell you everything you need to know and kind of be your point of contact throughout. Then I believe you'll be just fine filling out the paperwork. So again, 50-50. That's my thoughts on when you should get your VOSB or your SDVOSB. Now lastly is the HUBZone, and this is probably the most interesting / perplexing. You see the HUBZone set aside used sometimes. Obviously there are small business goals for all set asides like this. It's just not one that I have seen utilized to its max, and I think it's because it's just so unique and different. There are a number of things that affect it. The process can be up to 6 months. I have seen this one being a bit longer. I have seen it be shorter too. And what's interesting about the HUBZone certification is that you're really looking at your business residing in a HUBZone, as well as a minimum percentage of your company's employees residing in a HUBZone. So this can be really interesting when your company starts to grow, meaning you get more employees, you start to affect that ratio. And you are supposed to update that every so often, annually at the very least, if not more frequently, or just if you do pass a threshold, at which point in time you will outgrow that set aside and you will no longer have it. So it's not like the 8A where at least you have a chunk of time. It's really limited to the growth of your company. So companies try to find creative ways to kind of get around this, which I don't recommend that you do. But it's just one of those things where, I don't see a heck of a lot of opportunities. Say I see way more woman-owned small business or veteran-owned small business set-asides than I do HUBZones. You see what I'm saying? So I'm not really seeing a huge bang for the buck on this one, and it can take up to 6 months. Again, personal experience. So if you're deciding, hey, sam.gov and then HUBZone, I don't really feel that that's what's going to be best for your business. This could be something that you grow into. more like the 8A application. So for that reason, I'm not really recommending that you jump in to try to get your HUBZone certification, but you do have to take it with a grain of salt, because like I said, if you know you're going to be growing within a couple of years and you're going to get more employees, and it's going to be even harder to meet that minimum. Again, the more employees that you have, the harder that's going to get. So if you wait too long, then you may be too big. If you do it too early, it just could become a major distraction. So that's why I said this is probably the most interesting, and just in general, you could probably tell that I don't love the set-aside, because I'm just not really seeing a whole lot of HUBZone set-aside opportunities out there. I know that they've created some new things for areas that need support as well. But for the HUBZone certification myself, I'm just not in love with it, and it would be my recommendation to not go after that right away. Instead, I'd rather see you stick to the fundamentals of bidding, proposal writing, winning some contracts first. Obviously, you want to look at your situation. Everybody's situation is different. You may have a situation that kind of supersedes my recommendation. Although I do feel strongly about each of these 4 recommendations, I encourage you to look at your own situation and decide ultimately what is best for your business as to when you should get your own federal set-asides. So I mentioned it at the beginning of this video, but if you are either at the stage where you're like, I need to get the fundamentals down, I need to know the bidding and proposal writing process, compliantly submitting my bids, and I want Derek as my coach to be able to check in with him once a week to see how things are going, then consider joining our first FedBid beta program. You know, we're kicking off mid-February, so next month, and just a couple more weeks to enroll, to get on my calendar to talk about it, to see if it would be a fit. If you are established, if you are a service-based business, if you are getting super aggressive in 2022 with federal contracts, I would love to speak with you. So I hope today's video was helpful to you. Again, industry says one thing. I try to give you what's real and what you really need for your business. So if you like this video, you got some value, click the like button. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.